Racette, and I'm really excited for his talk here. And he's calling in from Baltimore, Maryland. He is an organizational change management consultant and COO of Agile Extended, which was founded in 2017. He's presenting synchronized surfing and how to keep your company from being crushed by technological tidal wave. Reed's background, more than 20 years of experience leading teams and managing initiatives in federal, corporate, nonprofit, and military environments. His passion is helping teams, executives, and companies achieve higher levels of performance through culture and behavior changes. His clients are mostly in North America, and but they do work outside of North America. And outside of work, Reed likes to do what I think we all like to do, is drink, but he's the professional bartender. So after the conference, we're all going to Reed's, and he's going to make us some great cocktails. Take it away, Reed.
Hey, thanks, thanks, Jim. I saw my background flipping around. Am I right side up?
Yep. No, you're flipped. Your background's flipped.
I'm flipping it. Okay, I'm sorry.
There you
go. All right, so you can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the introduction, Jim. And when we started talking about putting this webinar together and doing an organizational change section on the webinar, we're thinking about the theme of the technological tidal wave. And first thing that came to mind was AI. And so keeping in theme of surfing, we wanted to say, or waves rather, we want to say this is, AI is great, it's radical, it's tubular even, and it's a lot of good things you can use right now. And a lot of companies are amped up to explore solutions to their business problems and use all the newest things. But you have to remember, as a company and as a leader in a company, that even a small change that you make in the organization, technology change or other change, it can cause ripples throughout the whole company. Okay, so a big thing like artificial intelligence, that's a tidal wave. That's a tidal wave. And so if you're going to surf on a tidal, I don't surf, but if you're going to surf on a tidal wave, you got to be a pretty good surfer, and that's hard enough. It's hard enough for one person. But if you're trying to bring your entire company along, if you're trying to drive a major organizational change like AI implementation, that's like synchronized surfing. And so, like I said, I don't surf, but I try to bring in a little bit of surfing lingo here and there for just to stay on theme. So we'll see how that goes. But so if you are synchronized surfing, it's like synchronized swimming. It's a team sport. So it's not enough that you're a good surfer, right? You've got to be a good surfer, but you could be 5-time queen or king of the beach, and if no one else in your organization can surf, you're not going to have a good synchronized surfing team. So you need to know in a big transformation, is everybody else in your organization able to surf? Are they all on board, so to speak? You don't want to get up on your wave and find out everyone else is still on shore, changing into the bathing suits. So that's what we try and do is work with companies, make sure that their people are prepared and their organization is prepared, so everybody's on the same wave, or at least in the same ocean. So it doesn't matter if you're talking about tech transformation like we're doing now, or a different major shift in the company. Most transformations fail. Harvard Business Review talked about this. Harvard Business Review wrote an article and did a story a couple of years ago, and Forbes had a similar one. Most transformations fail. They give us some insight into why. It's not usually because the technology doesn't work. It's more often due to poor human skills. And that's things like being able to communicate with one another and collaborate with one another. So another thing is being able to align the plans of an organization with their body of work. So people are working on the right thing. It's no good to be making a really good fuel injector on your team if the rest of the company is working on an electric car. So you want to be in alignment. And so then the other failure, the big failure, is failing to prepare the staff for changes. So if you want to build a transformative culture, you want to be able to have successful changes and transformations instead of failed transformations. We can improve levels of trust and engagement across an organization by 30, 40, 50%. And when you do that, you get more successful changes, more successful programs, and fewer abandoned transformations. Because that's the worst thing that happens, right? Is it's not just that you don't get it right the first time and then you get it right the second time. Okay, you failed, then you succeeded. But if you fail and then you abandon the effort, that's when you have the most waste. So you want to get away from that. So like Jim said, my name is Reed. I work in organizational culture change. I'm the COO at Agile Extended. We specialize in a cognitive approach to organizational culture change. What does that mean? And we help our customers prepare for changes, navigate changes in process, in strategy, and in culture. We use a lot of techniques that we've learned over the years and many that we've developed ourselves in-house. We use things like co-creation, gamification, to get you better engagement on the teams, to improve the team's performance, and overcome a lot of problems. A lot of these problems are really common, but just because they're common doesn't mean they're easy. They're common, but they're still difficult to solve. But we do it by improving alignment, improving collaboration, and improving communication across the teams. So we joined EIG because, we're good at what we do. But it's like Jim said, we're not all experts in everything. And so this group lets us bring in experts from other fields, in technology. People that are going to be speaking after me, like Hosni, Create-us-Off, Paul from Excellence, Jackie from 7-Star HR yesterday, and Marty. They all have different strengths. So we can do what we're good at, and we act as a force multiplier to them, and they can do that for us. So it's a valuable partnership. I want to share 4 key points about culture change today, about organizational culture change today. Number 1 is you can change the way you're trying to drive change, and you probably should. You can do it by leading with trust and collaboration and empathy, but it's got to be sincere. You can't fake it. The second key point is taking a cognitive approach. Again, that means we'll talk about, is everybody on board? How do you know? Well, you know by understanding the reality of the people in the organization, the systems that they're working within, IT systems and just process systems, and understanding how to use that information to create a better path forward. Because what you have in your mind might work in your mind, but the practical implementation of it within the company is dependent on the reality of the people and the systems. The third key point is that human skills are as valuable as tech skills, and they're probably more important. But it's okay. You can improve human skills. There's a way to do it. Some people say, "Oh, gee, I'm not very empathetic. I'm not good at collaboration." But you can improve, and there's a way to improve at the organizational level by following a time-boxed iterative process. And so the 4th key point is the compass. That is the time-boxed iterative process that we use. It's called the compass for agility, and it's a proven approach that lets you enable effective transformation in any organization. So I'll just emphasize, human skills are important at any stage, but they're critical during transformations. And right now, if you're watching this webinar, you're probably not expecting an extended period of stability. You're always in some kind of transformation. Changes that are more complex require a higher level of human skills. And that's one of the things that the DevOps Institute talks about in their upskilling report every year. I've got a link to that in the notes on this presentation. If you can check that out later on. So if more complex changes require a higher level of human skills, then you got to think, well, will something like an AI adoption process be more or less complex than previous transformations? So I'm just going to ask a quick question. Have we ever seen anything like the AI tidal wave or the technological tidal wave that AI is a part of? And if you can answer in chat real quick, I appreciate that. A, lots of times. B, no, never. C, this must be a trick question. The answer is yes and no. We have seen major disruptive changes before, right? People freak out a little bit about them each time. You know, way back when, oh, the telegraph is going to change everything, right? But more recently, the web's going to change everything. The smartphone is going to change everything, and they all did, in a way, change everything or change a lot of things. And some companies took advantage of these, and some didn't. And some companies adapted, and some died. And we see it all the time. But we've never seen is change at this pace before. This level of market acceptance, where, you know, mid-sized companies, a lot of the mid-sized companies are still struggling with getting their mobile websites working. They're still, you know, trying to get their social media account working. But you got 75% of the Fortune 500 companies that are going to use machine learning and AI to aid in product development over the next year. You know, almost as many see AI as a revenue generator. So they're not looking to develop the next new thing. They're looking to use these new tools to their competitive advantage, and they want to generate a positive ROI.
So Reed, just to let you know, I'm sorry to interrupt. People can only respond in the questions tab. So if they can enter their responses in the question tab.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yeah, please use the question tab. I thought it was the.
Yeah, no worries. Reed? Reed?
Help your people understand where you're going, why you're doing it, what their role is. Because in any kind of transformation, people are going to be scared. So why are people afraid? Lots of reasons. Big tech changes can be disruptive, and they can cause a perceived threat or a real threat to things like job security, you know, company longevity. Will the company even be here in 2 years or 3 years? People worry about their own capability gaps and whether they can keep up. And if they have to change jobs, will they be current to change jobs? And they worry about how they're going to be perceived by their teams and team cohesion, whether they can trust one another. And all of these things are real fears, and we can help companies, you know, kind of address those and work through them. Some people are going to be afraid to rise to the machines or whatever. We probably can't help with that one, but we can help with a lot of the fears. And I think people have a fair reason, a valid reason to be concerned, because in your organization, by a major transformation, what kind of roles? Well, almost everyone, right? You know, so if you're going to be doing something huge and you're not keeping everybody in the loop about what their role is, what's going to happen, why you're doing it, what your long-term goal is, people are going to make up their own answers and they're going to get concerned. I don't want anybody to be scared, but I think it's reasonable for people to be concerned, especially when there's not the right kind of preparation and communication coming out of the leadership. What happens when people are scared? Well, a lot of things can happen when people are scared. Most of them are not very good things. You get the yes man or the yes woman approach. People don't want to disagree with the boss. You get infighting. Some people just get disengaged. These things lead to turnover, right? Now, you can get disengagement and you can get trust issues even when people aren't stressed. But when you're going to have major change happening, it's going to exacerbate these things. So it creates an unsafe environment, and that's going to slow you down, and it's going to hit your bottom line. And you don't want that. So when people feel unsafe, engagement drops, productivity suffers. Turnover is going to be expensive no matter what, no matter when it happens. You know, even a good labor market, bad labor market, people aren't fungible. So turnover is expensive. You want to do your best to stop these things that occur when there's more fear in the organization. So what's the point? Well, you can't stop disruptive changes, and you shouldn't want to, right? You can use them to your advantage, and if you don't, your competitors will. You might be able to predict the direction of technology. You might not be able to. You probably can't. You might go out on a limb and make a bold prediction like computers are going to get faster or AI is going to get smarter. Well, of course it is, but you can't predict how people are going to respond to new technology, how to use new technology, what they're going to do with it once they have it, right? We saw on the Jetsons, we saw a version of YouTube, and Zoom, people could predict that that's coming. On-demand video years ago, people could predict that's going to all come over. Nobody predicted that you'd see an 8-year-old kid making $100,000 or $200,000 by posting a video of themselves opening a toy. Nobody would predict that, there's a woman on TikTok, 19 years old, posting dance videos and making more money than the CEO of McDonald's, right? But that happened. That happened. So these are kind of edge cases, but people didn't see them coming. And so the point is, you can't predict how people can use technology. You can't predict what new technology is, probably, but you can help your people and your business prepare for the change, no matter what it is. Changing environment, they can thrive. Doesn't matter what it is if you prepare properly. So how to prepare? I'm going to tell you about 4 key areas of success. You can use these to prepare your culture and manage your change. And they work in tech changes like cloud migrations, software changes, AI adoption. They also work for non-tech transformations. The organizations, right? Things like organizations, like reorganizations, or like the launch of a new product line. So they're valuable in a lot of ways. They help more than just tech changes. And I mentioned most tech changes fail, most transformations fail, which is accurate. Failure is not necessarily bad, as long as you fail fast, you fail forward. So we also want to make sure that when we do fail, we learn and we move on. So we have an approach. We have several tools that we've developed and others that we've learned to use over the years, and they'll help you lead successful changes. Okay, so the time we have left, I'll just talk about these. These are human-oriented success factors that you can use to help create the culture you need and get everybody, surfing on the same wave, right? So I'm going to show you how these can affect ROI, how they can decrease turnover, how they can create better teams and happier customers. And afterwards, it would be great to get your thoughts on these, get your feedback. Okay, the first success factor is trust. Everything starts with trust. And it sounds simple because you wouldn't follow somebody in an organization that you didn't trust. You'd probably be looking for another place to work. But it's simple to understand that you need a culture of trust and that that's valuable. It's still hard to create, especially if you're starting from a point of deficit. So it's a key to be psychologically safe. If you want a psychologically safe environment, you have to start with trust. People have been talking about psychological safety for a long time. If you haven't looked into this, a good place to start is by looking at Google's Aristotle project. I'm not going to talk about that right now. We just don't have time. But I put a link to an article from the New York Times in there about Aristotle project, and there's others. It just suffice to say, trust has a high. A guy named Paul Zak wrote a book called The Trust Factor: The Science of High-Performing Companies. He spent like 8 years on it, and he learned that trust. If you work in a high trust environment, your body produces more oxytocin, right? Not oxycontin, oxytocin. It's a chemical associated with being able to be in touch with other people's emotions. And when you're in an environment like that, you tend to work hard to achieve a group goal. You have a higher level of innovation and productivity. high trust environments. Companies that have a high trust environment have about half the turnover. People have about 13% fewer sick days. You get more revenue and happier customers, and you can improve trust at a relatively little cost, but it does take effort. Yeah, it takes a commitment. But lots of other studies have found similar results to the ones that I'm talking about. The question is, how do you even know? How do you know if your leadership team, if your staff are trusted, and are you trusting in them? How do you know? Well, most people say, yes, we are. I know I'm trusted. My people trust me. But if you start asking yourself questions, start saying, do I ever make a commitment? Do I ever tell my staff I'm going to do something, but then not do it? Most likely you do, not on purpose, but you probably do. And then the more you look at your actions and the history, the more you can really figure out, do my people trust me? Do I trust my staff, my leadership team? You can make the power of trust work for you if you commit to it. We have an organizational trust formula. It helps you understand the factors that add to trust, that multiply trust, and that detract from trust. We use that with our trust assessment. We put together workshops and other activities that help increase trust between team members, across business units, and trust in leadership. And a scenario I can talk about is a client that we were working with. They were struggling with engagement. They wanted people to be more actively involved in support of the mission, in creating innovative solutions, and engaging in conversations. And so, the first thing we did was, well, let's figure out where we are. We conducted a trust and engagement survey, and the responses kind of showed there was a pretty severe lack of trust. Only about half the people in the organization trusted senior leadership. Most of the staff didn't trust middle management. Middle management didn't trust each other or the senior leadership. But if you had asked, most of the people there would have said, yeah, we trust each other. Looking at the data, it showed they didn't. So you got to have trust if you want engagement. Engagement's going to drive your ROI, but there's not a magic button to push. So we started looking at how we could make improvements, and fortunately, the leadership team was committed. So we worked through a series of workshops, a series of engagements, how we change behaviors to improve culture, and we started seeing observable improvements in just a couple months. And then we stuck with it over the course of the year. After a year, we did another survey, another engagement and trust survey. We saw a 35% increase in the staff's level of trust in senior leadership. That's a pretty good result. We saw increases in staff's trust of middle management. There was some improvement in trust across middle managers. We weren't really focusing on that so much, but the cool one was 50% improvement in the middle manager's trust of senior leadership, which is an excellent result. So more engagement as an outcome, which we could measure by the survey itself, but also we could observe the number of people that are volunteering to share ideas and to innovate and to work on new improvements. So great outcomes by improving trust.
Hey, Reed.
Yes,
do you have a hotspot? Do you have a hotspot you can turn on? Because you're coming in and out.
I do.
Bear with us for a minute.
I'm afraid if I switch, I might lose my connection, but let's see.
Well, why don't you go ahead and keep going, and we'll see what happens.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Fine. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to jump to factor two. It's contextual awareness. And in technology, when we use the term contextual awareness, we're usually talking about a device like the way a smartphone will reorient when you turn the screen. But as humans, we use this term a different way. It's about how we understand the people in our organization, how we understand the systems in our environment, and we understand how those things affect our approach to problem solving. Trying to apply the same management techniques uniformly across an organization, it almost never works. Any individual team can have different management needs over the course of a year, but if you look across an organization, you see big variance in institutional maturity, in educational norms, in culture, all kinds of things. So having contextual intelligence and developing contextual intelligence helps us adapt our knowledge to a context that's different from the one where we learned the knowledge, right? It's not surprising because we have to adjust a lot of things for context. A carpenter or a therapist or an engineer takes what they learned in their training and their education and what they learned in one situation, and then they apply it differently to help different clients or build different things. So to do this during transformative change, you need to understand the people that are going to be involved in the transformation and the people that are going to be affected by the transformation. So it helps to do a little bit of time travel. You have to understand what's relevant from the past. You have to be aware of the context today, if there's variables like internal politics or staffing changes or challenges. And then you want to look toward the future and say, have we articulated our desired outcome? What is the desired outcome? Understand the past, the present, and the future, so you can have the context. That lets us make better, smarter decisions. So you see more of what could trip you up, and you make the right preparations. An example of this is, personality assessments. A lot of people like personality assessments, like the DISC assessment. I kind of like them, but we can fall into a trap of saying, well, I'm an ABCD personality, so I behave this way. And we think there's a flaw in a lot of these assessments and how they're conducted and what people do with them, maybe not the assessments themselves, because people don't account for the fact that they're going to show up based on a context. So their mood or environmental factors or the situation is going to change the way they appear, regardless of what their personality style is. So you can adjust your behaviors appropriately if you understand context. Just like you might tell a different joke at a bar than you tell at the office, So that doesn't change your personality. You can understand this without ever taking like a DISC assessment or something. But if you're going to do it right and if you're going to do it effectively to help organization, you need to be mindful and make a little effort. They were unhappy with the initiative and the innovation that was happening on their team, and they wanted to help change their behaviors. And we said, that's fair, but we need to understand a little more context. So we looked at the past. We saw, hey, the staff is used to certain things, certain negative things. Previous leadership, if you stood up with an idea, the boss might even say something like, oh, that's a stupid idea. Worse yet, if you tried something that didn't work, he'd call you out in front of everybody. Oh, look at Mr. Smarty Pants over here, tried something that cost us money. That was a big waste of money, waste of time. There was very, very little incentive to take risk. There was greater incentive to keep your head down and not take risks. So we asked the customer, if you're going to change the behaviors of the people in the organization, you're going to have to change some of your own behaviors. Are you ready to do that? And they're like, whoa, I want to change their behaviors. I don't want to change our behaviors. But, looking at the context, looking at the history, they're going to have to, because behaving and get a different outcome, they have a certain way. And so to change things, we got a lot of good things happen. We use a couple tools created, one called the Culture Collab. It's an event where we introduce and we facilitate discussions about different people's backgrounds, about different people's influences from inside work and from outside of work, and we share things that are somewhat vulnerable, And doing that kind of creates a connection. Another tool we developed is called Spectrix. It's a gamified tool. It's a game board that has a matrix of character types and traits, and the difference between these personalities, these archetypes rather, and personality styles is that characters in Spectrix are defined by behaviors, and by playing the game, working on it, you can see how behaviors being changed in one way or another will help you relate to people or groups that are of different communication styles or learning styles. So, that's important. We learn that if we show up differently, we can relate better to the individuals and the teams in our groups. So the outcomes from this were we get better transformation, better transparency, better alignment, better collaboration. Most importantly, people involved and engaged and invested in solutions. Okay, quickly, layered perspectives is the third success factor. This is all about diversity and inclusion. It overlaps a little with contextual awareness, but I want to look at this from a different perspective. Transformations require multiple disciplines, and that means they're going to require multiple perspectives. Nobody knows everything. There's some misconceptions about D&I. People think it is a compliance exercise, or it's only associated with race or gender identity. It's a lot more than that. The thing is, if you always lean on the same people for your solutions and your innovations, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. You never know where the next big idea is going to come from. So it's not easy, but you can take the politics out of D&I if you recognize there's business value in diversity and inclusion. If you look at it as a compliance exercise, like you're going to pass or fail, that's not high value. That's like, it's like passing a NIST security assessment. You can pass. It's like getting a D in an exam. Did you make anything more secure? Well, maybe not. You're not even really sure. We're not happy with Ds, right? So we don't treat D&I like a compliance exercise. If you do, you're just leaving money on the table. So you can use it to your advantage. How do you do that? Creating an inclusive environment is actually a culture change in itself. And it's a bigger culture change, and it has as big a benefit as almost anything you'll do. You can lead by example. You can make small changes and be consistent, and you'll see great improvements. We work with people to help them define the behaviors that they want to see, and then we co-create events that would prompt and reinforce those behaviors. One of the things we do is it's pretty cool. It's called The Room Where It Happened. It's named after a scene from Hamilton, the Broadway show, and it's all about inviting people to be part of a transformation. It's harder to drive change than it is to invite people to change. So you invite people in, they're part of it, they're invested in it, and you get a lot more results. We're working with a client, a software company, and we saw that during demos and during planning sessions, the developers were outspoken, the testers were pretty quiet. This can be a problem. Testers have the user perspective. So we said, why is this? Well, it also turned out most of the testers were female, most of the developers were male. So there might have been a gender dynamic going on, or it might have been that the developers thought that they're smarter or more relevant than the testers. Whatever it was harmful. So we had to work on creating events and creating collaborations to help the testers speak up and say when they found problems and say what they thought might be a good solution, get the user's perspective, and ultimately get a higher quality product to market faster. And the fourth success factor is the compass. I mentioned this earlier. Think about roadmaps versus a compass. And this is all a bunch of metaphors, right? But if you're going to a known destination, going someplace you've been before, there's already a route there. Hey, you can use a roadmap. There's a fixed starting point, a fixed end point. If you're going someplace new, someplace uncharted, maybe the roads aren't even built yet, then you're probably going to find a compass is going to be more effective, or at least more helpful at first, because if you've never even been there before, and if no one's been there before, there's probably not a road there anyway. So we use the compass, and in that we use a 30-day cycle and follow kind of a modified, PDCA cycle. Each part of the compass has a direction we want to go, and it has a series of activities. Some are low commitment, some are higher commitment, depending on your time and your effort that you're willing to commit. It creates a lot of great conversations and outcomes within 30-day cycles. A good example of this, I had a customer working on a data center migration to the cloud. A lot of unknowns. This was a little bit different. They hadn't done it before to begin with, and it was a lot different from what they were normally doing. So they didn't have their full approach, but they wanted to go ahead and do a test, and it failed. So they learned, and they tried again, and it didn't work. And so it was the seventh time. Seventh time was a charm. They finally got everything up and running, and it was still relatively fast because when they weren't succeeding, they were learning and they were moving forward, and they were keeping their eyes on the ultimate goal. They didn't know the path that they were going to take, but they knew where their destination was. So they did short experiments. They learned. They iterated. There's no map for this kind of change, or there wasn't at the time. And as an outcome, they got a better cloud-hosted data center. They learned some resiliency, and they kept everything in alignment with the goals of the company. Okay, so as a recap, these are the success factors we talked about. And it's catch the wave. You can't really catch a wave, right? You gotta meet a wave. You go to where the wave is going to be, I guess. But the success factors: trust, contextual awareness, D&I, and the compass. And I'll just ask, how you doing? Is your team out of sync? Most organizations have problems like this. Lack of trust, poor engagement, poor alignment, communication, right? You probably have these problems. The question is, what are you going to do about it? There's some things you can do right away, some tools you can use, some assessments. I put a list of free resources in the appendix, things like Radical Candor, things like Jackie from 7-Star has a burnout survey. So there's a lot of things you can do to check in your culture right now. And then you might not be an organizational change expert. Maybe you want some help. Maybe you can work with someone like us. We can do things like compass sessions, Spectrix, trust workshops. We can create games and tools, a lot of things. Good culture doesn't just happen. You need to make it happen. So that is the presentation. I hope that it was valuable.
Reed, fantastic presentation. Really enjoyed it. Learning every day. I thought I knew what change management was. Of course, I was heavily involved with it 20 years ago, but boy, has it changed. And boy, have you brought in all the new tools, new methods, new ideas, all the things I think we wanted to do back then, but we didn't have we weren't able to do it. I think this is really a different level of change. So one question that's come in is, seeing that culture, the word culture and organizational change management has kind of been worn out through a lot of executives over the years. They got burned out trying to do the old change management. I'll just call it that, the way that we used to do it, let's say. What's different from what you see from what was done, let's say 15, 20 years ago, and what you guys at Agile Extended are looking to do? I mean, what's different and what brought about the change of the new tools, and how is it being received and delivered within organizations by themselves without you? A lot of questions in there.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I think I have to agree. A lot of these terms, organizational change, and even things like agile, business agility, people throw these terms around and they don't know what they mean, and it kind of dilutes things and it makes it difficult to understand. But also sometimes it becomes
Your connection, Breed, is not coming through. You seem to be frozen. Reed? We'll wait for Reed to regroup here. Having some technical problems, not able to get through bandwidth issues. Reed? Reed, are you there? I'm going to call him. He just disconnected. See if he comes back on. Sorry, guys. I think he's reconnecting. Are you trying to reconnect, Reed?
It says my connection is restored, but I guess you can't hear me.
We can't hear you.
Okay, hang on, it's I don't know what's going on. Reconnecting to audio.
Because when it pops in, it puts you on mute, maybe.
It still says connecting to audio.
You're not showing up. Well, you're showing up there. You haven't left us on GoToMeeting, so.
I have no idea why it's doing this.
Yeah, your connection is, you can't switch to your hotspot, can you?
I just switched.
I switched a minute ago.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
You're back.
Wow. Okay, so that was unexpected. But Jim, you were talking about the differences in how we approach now compared to 10 or 20 years ago, and there are some similarities. We want to always build on what people knew before and take advantage of some of the stuff that people have learned before. But other things that people didn't include before, there used to be a lot of top-down approach. It used to be a little less of a collaboration and more command and control. And so we've tried to move toward focusing on psychological safety, on inclusion, and on emotional intelligence, and also bringing in the co-creation aspect to get people to bring the people who are closest to the problem into the solution process, into the planning process, so that there's less fear, less discomfort, and more understanding of the change to come. And then that's been able to, for us, get us to a point where we got more successful outcomes and things that stick after we walk away from the engagement.
Excellent. Can you turn your camera on? Will that work?
Let's give it a try.
Thank you. Perfect. You're back. All right. We'll see. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Yeah, I think the change management world has changed. Now, how with AI, can you use AI to help in this process of using better tools that are more empathetic to helping understand better emotions and tone and tenor in an organization, how much that impacts the ability to deliver productivity, attitude, all those things? Are we starting to use AI to help us in those areas or other tools?
We are, and it's getting actually better and better. There's I know people within EIG work on some of these things, that tools that recognize tone, recognize facial expressions, and a different nuance from person to person. It'll focus on how an individual looks today versus how they looked yesterday, and it can pull in a trillion different variables. So that gives you a lot more insight into a comparison of somebody's engagement now versus how they were, last week or last month.
Sure. We're
not using that right yet, but I know a lot of places have it under development. But what we're using isn't quite as sophisticated as that, but we're using a lot of AI-enabled survey tools. Things like Remesh is a good example. Remesh, it will let you run a survey and let people enter free-form text, and then it can analyze the results of the survey, including the multiple choice questions in free-form text, to group like answers and to form analyses on sentiment and on priorities across the people that are responding. And that's very helpful too, because that lets us focus on, okay, what are the top 3 most important things we need to work on, or other things like that. So there are definitely better tools being developed, and some that we're using right now that are very helpful.
Well, thank you, Reed. Thanks for your patience, and I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions because of the technical problems. So I guess the technological tidal wave overshadowed our technology.
I think we tech had a little weight bound, Jim.
Yeah, the wave came through, so we maxed it out. So we still have bandwidth issues. So we're talking about using AI, and we still can't have we still have bandwidth issues no matter what. But we're a long ways. When people sit there and say we're going to get to AI, it's like, well, don't we have to solve the World Wide Web issue first? So there are a couple constraints out there.
And just like a team, it varies from day to day. Yesterday it could have been working just great, and today not so much.
Yeah. So, but thanks for your patience, Reed, and fantastic talk. I look forward to learning more, and I'm sure others are also. You do have your document that's available to anyone. They can contact me or you directly. You can go to Agile Extended website or the EIG website and send an email in, and we'll send you the deck right away. Thank you so much, Reed.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
So with that, we're going to start at the top of the hour with Hosni Hydra on the digital twin and unleashing the digital twin, that is. And we look forward to his discussion on how to make that real for you and your organization. See you at the top of the hour.